In today's video, we are going to take a look at some of the reasons that parents say they regret having kids. These regrets are coming directly from parents.
Quick disclaimer, this is not a hate video, this is a video that is looking at real situations.
Hi, I'm Hannah, the wife without kids. This channel is all about creating a positive community to support you in your child-free life. Here's the first one. There is no guarantee how your kid is going to turn out. My life turned into a living hell when my oldest son was a teenager. He started using substances, and I can't get into the specifics because this video will be flagged if I do. So he started using certain substances when he was 14. He was arrested for breaking into cars at the same age. We had absolutely no control of him, and he started selling substances. It was 4 horrible years. I had 2 breakdowns. My marriage was completely torn apart. Neither my husband nor I had gotten into any of the things he got into. There's no guarantee how your kid will turn out. Oh my goodness. Yikes. Okay, when I was 14, I was not into any of that kind of stuff. Neither were my friends. And I know kids get into things super young now. I've heard of like 10-year-olds doing this kind of stuff, and I can't even imagine. This would be a horrible fear of mine if I had a kid. I mean, you could teach them all the right things, but what if they just went their own way? A 14-year-old, like that's so hard for me to imagine. I was like an innocent kid when I was 14. I knew what certain substances were, but I certainly was not interested in using them. She said she had 2 breakdowns and her marriage was torn apart. Yeah, I could see that. You could be the best parent and there's no guarantees. But yet it's your kid and you love them. I'm pretty sure no parent would want this to happen to their child. So, I mean, she doesn't say what ended up happening to their child, but hopefully he's in a better place. These kids are putting a strain on my adult relationships. I feel like kids have destroyed my marriage. Both of us have changed since our child was born, and I'm afraid the people we've become are not as compatible as the people we used to be. Any communication that happens is all about the logistics regarding our kid. It's been over 4 years and things are not changing. I love my child more than anything on earth. Except I love my wife a little bit more. But I miss having a companion in life. If I had known it would be like this, I don't think I would have made the same decision. That is one thing that a lot of my friends have said. The relationship with your spouse completely changes when you have kids. And it can change in good ways, I'm sure, and it can change in challenging ways. But this is making it sound like it's changed in a lot of really bad ways. I do think if you're just so used to having time together and getting to do things and going on dates and having fun together and being spontaneous together, and that sort of turns on its head because now you have a child that you're taking care of, I can see how giving that up, you're almost mourning the kind of relationship you used to have with someone. Maybe they weren't expecting the different to last this long, or they were expecting to enjoy the different more, or maybe they weren't realizing how different it actually would be. I love my relationship with my husband. That would be so hard for me to give up. At the end of the day, if you don't want to give any of that up, or you think you're only giving it up for a short time and then you realize 4 years later, no, you're still giving up what you thought you would have back, that would be really disappointing. I never get a minute to myself. As an introvert, this is the hardest part. I see my friends going on vacations, doing whatever they want when they want. I can't because kids are so expensive and we can't afford to go anywhere. Even when my husband and I are planning a vacation, I'm surprised how quickly everything adds up, but I can't imagine adding kids to the mix. I hear some parents talk about taking their kids to like Disneyland or Disney World and how ridiculously expensive it is. Not getting any time to yourself. I am an introvert, so I can't imagine not having time to myself. That literally sounds horrible. Honestly, it sounds really bad. I love quiet. I love time to myself. I love just reading a book in a corner. You introverts, you get me. You know what I'm talking about. Now that I'm a parent, I miss being spontaneous. I wasn't ready to stop being selfish. I'm only 2 years in. It is so intense. And parenting so far has just been relentlessly exhausting. I feel like having a kid closed off a lot of possibilities for me, and it's definitely killed any semblance of spontaneity in my life. Yeah, and she's only 2 years in, so she's got a ways to go still. I mean, I'm sure as the kids get older, things get easier in certain aspects. It's also kind of sad to read that she thinks having a kid closed off possibilities for her, because yes, there are certain things that probably are closed off to you, but there's other things that you get to do when you're a parent. Those are also possibilities and opportunities in life. They're just different, and different isn't bad. But if she's comparing it to her other life, maybe she sees that as being a drawback. Reading this, it makes me think I don't even realize how often I'm spontaneous and that we just get up and go and do things because we can. I definitely lack a motherly instinct. She goes on to say, I love my children more than anything else in this world. Words cannot describe the kind of love I have for them, but at the same time, I do regret having them. I regret being the person that I have become as a parent. I was always carefree and spur of the moment. I always said I would never have children. I don't like kids. I am not the type of person that is very nurturing. I was always very careful to make sure that I used protection, but apparently I am part of that 0.1% that is very fertile. I do not have that natural motherly instinct that all women seem to have. You know, the one that kicks in the moment you know that you're pregnant. I have to work really hard at it, and it's absolutely exhausting. There is so much of this that I feel like I can relate to. Obviously not the part about getting pregnant, but having that fear that I would be like that teeny tiny percentage that even though you use protection, you would still get pregnant. I mean, I didn't. I do not feel motherly. And I think that's one reason I actually really like cats, because they don't need a lot of attention and they just sort of are off on their own doing their own thing. And I feel like that fits my personality really well. I can't imagine being nurturing to something constantly 24/7. I've never felt any kind of desire to do that. And when I see babies, it doesn't bring up any kind of desire in me. I think there are women that just don't naturally have that motherly instinct towards children. Maybe you have instincts or motherly instincts towards other things, but not necessarily children. I just don't think that every single woman is the same to be the nurturing parent, because obviously she isn't, and she did have a child, and she's just like, oh, it's kind of a rough place to be when you don't feel that. And I cannot imagine how much effort that must take to kind of make yourself be motherly if that naturally doesn't come to you, because I feel like that's a whole other part of your character that you have to develop, and if you don't naturally have it, it's really hard to develop character traits that you don't naturally have. So I think that would be exhausting. Literally, I do think that would be absolutely exhausting. I am glad though that she does love her child. Oh, here's an interesting one. Kids put honey on the cat? Really? Unless kids are sleeping, they require your constant attention. They break things and they make a mess. Talking about a mess, you have no idea how much chaos one baby or toddler can produce in a single day. Sometimes they vomit. If you're lucky, it's just on the living room floor. If not, it's inside your car. You can't reason with them. No matter how hard you try, many times they simply can't or don't understand you. They do stupid things like putting honey on the cat. Honey on a cat. I can't imagine. Cats are so freaking particular. I can't even imagine trying to get honey out of a cat's coat. It's actually really funny. I mean, not if it's your cat and your kid. Occasionally I bath my cats and they literally hate it. And it takes like 2 of us to hold them down to get them clean. So I can't imagine trying to get honey out of a cat coat. And it's true, kids do need constant supervision and attention. My sisters always say to me, if you have the kids at your house and they get really quiet, find out what they're doing, because they're probably doing something they shouldn't be doing. We don't specifically regret having kids, but we wish that we had waited longer before having them. It's not that I regret having my daughter, but if I could wrap her in cotton wool and bubble wrap and put her in a cupboard for 10 years with the guarantee that I would get the same child back, I would without a doubt do that. I think it can go both ways though, because I know people that had kids immediately after they got married and they didn't regret it because they said, okay, we were young parents, we had all sorts of energy, and now their kids are pretty much out of the house and they get the rest of their 40s, 50s, 60s to themselves without their kids around. But then on the other hand, I do know people who waited 10 years before they had kids and they said they absolutely didn't regret the time that they got to spend with each other before they had kids. So honestly, I think this is a really personal thing. The entire concept of having kids is personal, but I think this really depends on your relationship with your significant other and where you're at in life, because some people get married later in life and then if they want kids, they're going to have them right away. They don't want to wait 10 years because, you know, then they may not ever have kids. I think about the road that I did not take. I will never say that I regret having my son per se. He is an amazing kid, but I think I would be just as happy if I had not had any children. I never wanted a kid when I was young. I am separated from my son's father, but when we were married, he insisted that we have at least one child. I know that if it was up to me, I wouldn't have had any, and I hate to say this, but I think it would be better not to have any children at all. However, I will never tell this to my son. It's clear from her description she really didn't want kids, but she felt pressured to have kids, and so she decided, all right, I guess I'm just going to have a child. This is, I think, the worst reason to have a kid. Don't have a kid if you really don't want one. If you want to have a kid, being a parent is probably the right thing for you, but if you really don't want to be a parent, you shouldn't be having kids. It can be kind of a scary thing to have a kid when you don't actually want to do that. That's why it's so important to realize that you actually have a choice in having a kid. You do not have to be a parent. It is optional. I recently made a video why some millennials are choosing not to have kids. Go ahead and check it out because I think you're going to find it really helpful and it might be some of the reasons that you're considering not having kids yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you are never alone and I will see you next week.